Thank you for joining us today. My name is Andrea Brown Harrison, and I will be moderating today's press conference. Now, I would like to introduce our speakers. Joining us today are Representative Matt Kolesar from Plymouth, Representative Lori Pohutsky from Livonia, and Representative Stephanie Young from Detroit. They are here today to continue House Democrats' efforts to protect the right to vote. Now I will turn it over to Representative Kolesar.
Thank you, Andrea, and thank you everyone for being here this morning. I am going to remember that just because it says 60 degrees on the forecast, I should probably remember it's 30 degrees in the morning and I'm still not wearing a coat. But thank you everyone for being here. As Andrea said, my name is Matt Kolesar, and I proudly represent Michigan's 20th district, which is Plymouth, Northville, and a portion of Canton. As an AP government teacher turned legislator, my work has dealt with our democratic process for many years. I was responsible for instructing my students about how our system of government works, which of course includes our elections. After all, elections are the foundation of a representative form of government, which makes it so frustrating and disheartening that there are efforts still out there to undermine that foundation. Just last week, the House voted on a series of bills meant to gum up the workings of our elections, from prohibiting digital signatures on absentee ballot applications, which could disenfranchise older and disabled voters, to barring donations to state and local election agencies, putting immense financial pressure on the system, to banning clerks from sending absentee ballot applications to voters unless they ask, despite the voters' overwhelming support for absentee ballot or absentee voting in the 2020 election. This this was an action that drove turnout to record levels and helped election workers deal with voting during the depths of the pandemic. And I fear what is truly driving these so-called quote-unquote reforms: suppressing turnout and creating barriers between Michiganders and their fundamental constitutional freedom to vote. As a civics teacher, as a legislator, and quite frankly, as a citizen, I can't stand for that. One of the sponsors of the bills that I just mentioned said that there has been no substantive debate about election policy. First of all, I wholeheartedly disagree with that comment. Secondly, to him and to all of you listening here today, that's why we're here. House Democrats are firmly committed, as we always have been, to protecting the right to vote and breaking down barriers, not creating more. We introduced a package of bills in November that would make our elections run more smoothly, including my bill, which would allow clerks to pre-process absentee ballots, a measure that clerks on both sides of the aisle have called for. Although the majority hasn't taken them up yet, we still have more work to do, and that's what we're here talking about today. And with that, I would like to turn things over to Representative Pohutsky, who will talk more about her bill in the package. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Kolesar, and thank you all for being here this morning to discuss this important and timely package of bills. With each passing election, we see images of Michiganders waiting in line for hours simply to exercise their right to vote. In the year 2022, this is inexcusable, but it can be prevented with common sense legislation. My bill in this package would allow early in-person voting starting the second Sunday before Election Day and ending the Sunday before. Our state's laws shouldn't force Michiganders to choose between exercising their right to vote or getting to work on time. As legislators, we should be doing everything in our power to eliminate barriers to the ballot box and ensuring that every eligible voter can cast a ballot and make their voice heard. Long lines on Election Day disproportionately impact people who already face barriers to voting: working people, people of color, the disabled, and our senior citizens. Rather than passing legislation to make these obstacles even more insurmountable, we need to be working to empower our constituents to exercise their right to vote. Thank you, and I'm going to hand it over to Representative Stephanie Young to discuss her bill.
Lift that up just a little bit. Good morning, and thank you, Representative Pohutsky. My name is Stephanie Young, and I represent the 8th District out of the city of Detroit. And I just want you all to know I'm a proud sponsor in this bill package. This bill package has to do with voting safety and peace of mind. As we all know, the 2020 election, it was secure, successful, and accurate. But since that time, there have been attempts to undermine the outcome and prevent the record number of voters from turning out again. Now listen here, guys. During the Jim Crow era, that was a time of intimidation. That was a time where people who looked like me were presented with barriers to voting. And so showing up on election day and being met with armed gunmen at minimum is intimidating, especially for parents like me who take their children to vote, to get them used to voting at an early age. We want to teach them the importance, and to be met by armed gunmen is just simply out of the question. And so my bill would prohibit a person from carrying a firearm into or within 100 feet of any polling interest or location, with the exception for on-duty uniformed law enforcement officers. Now let's be clear. This is not about our constitutional right to own guns, but it is about the right of every Michigander to have a peace of mind and to feel safe when going and exercising their right to vote. We already have laws in place that limit where people are allowed to carry firearms. Places like churches and daycare facilities and sports arenas. And so there's nothing crazy or malicious about this legislation. It simply makes sense. Active polling places should be on this list. And to allow the presence of firearms to get in the way of letting our voices be heard at the ballot box, even if unintentionally, is just simply wrong. And it goes against the principles of a democratic society, which we all hold so dear. And so with that, I'd just like to say thank you for allowing me to speak today. And now I'll hand things over back to Ms. Andrea.
Thank you so much, Representative Young, and thank you everyone who joined us today in the cold. We appreciate your presence here so much.